This morning's reflection is based around the Gospel according to John chapter 10 verses 1 to 10, the Good Shepherd, and the Psalm of David, Psalm 23, the Divine Shepherd. I wonder what it was like being in Jerusalem that first Easter. I wonder what the response was generally after Christ was crucified, and then as word spread that he was resurrected, had defeated death and was alive. I wonder how those in Jerusalem felt. Not the disciples, just the general population. What did they sense? Did they think these are strange times? I don't know what people in Jerusalem were thinking and feeling 2,000 years ago, just as I don't know what all of you have been thinking and experiencing over the last month. I can only use a quote from A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens as a way of describing the current coronavirus COVID-19 situation. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. Very little of our lives has been left untouched by coronavirus. And at the moment it is possible to swing from joy and happiness to grief and despair. Not in a month, but in a day or even an hour. Last week we bid a final farewell to our friends Eileen Bannister and Joan Crosdale. Joan's funeral service included Psalm 23. The words of this beautiful and well-known psalm have been reverberating in my head and heart and brought me great comfort and hope and encouraged me to be aware of God's presence in my life each and every day. When everything around you is shifting and changing, the one thing we can all be sure of is God's unconditional, consistent and everlasting love of each and every one of us. This morning I'm hoping that you too can find comfort and trust in God's love and care of you and confidence in his presence in your life through the words of the psalm as together we reflect on Jesus as the Good Shepherd in our lives. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Throughout the Bible, the idea that the Lord is shepherd to his people is very familiar. In John's Gospel, Jesus speaks of himself as the Good Shepherd, who gives his life for the sheep and says, I know my own, and my own know me. Of course, living in or near Brindle, we are lucky enough to see flocks of sheep in the fields, but we don't often see shepherds sat with them. But that's the benefit of modern farming methods. Yet this recurring vision of the Lord as shepherd reiterates our knowledge that he cares for us as a shepherd cares for his sheep, for his flock. Feeding, guiding, governing, defending, handling, healing, tending and taking care of them. The sweetest word of the whole is that monosyllable, my. The Lord is my shepherd. And if he is a shepherd to no one else, he is shepherd to me. He cares for me and preserves me. Overwhelmingly, the idea behind God's role as shepherd is of love, loving care and concern. I find great comfort and security in the thought that God cares for me like a shepherd cares for his sheep. Through all this morning's scripture, however, we are made aware of our need of a good shepherd. For me, that need is ever stronger as we progress through another week of lockdown, of social isolation and distancing. I shall not want means that all my needs are supplied by the Lord my shepherd, and I can begin, perhaps, to rest more easily in my decision not to want more than the Lord my shepherd gives. The Lord my shepherd sustains me. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Next time you're out on your daily exercise, a walk or a run, just observe the sheep in the fields. My neighbour has only a small flock of very solid, square-looking sheep. And when I walked past the other day, the flock were sat together quietly chewing the cud. They were in a sheltered field with a lock on the gate and lots of grass. They were safe, protected, well fed, and with nothing bothering them. The Lord my shepherd knows and provides for my needs and guides me to a safe place where I can rest. The good shepherd leads me. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. I am restored through my relationship with Christ. It is easy at the moment to wander off away from God towards the fear and anxiety of the pandemic. These words remind me that I am rescued, I am brought back, I am made whole. Just as a good shepherd brings back a straying or lost sheep into the flock. I am important to God, and I can trust him to guide me, to allow me to walk the way of Christ, and to be free and safe to follow his simple commandment, to love my God and my fellow humans, no matter what. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For many of us, this is a time when we are journeying in a dark valley. However, we are never alone, for you are with me. God is always by my side, in my heart, and his presence gives me strength, makes me feel safe. Christ, the Good Shepherd, guides me and protects me. And there before me is the Lord as a kind host, with the bounty to feed me and the power to protect me. While God's goodness and care do not eliminate the presence of my enemies, I am enabled to experience God's goodness and bounty even in the midst of coronavirus. My cup overflows. I ask myself, how would it be if God filled my cup in proportion to my faith? How much have I got in my cup? Every day we see God's blessings even in the midst of our current concerns and experiences. The kindness of a friend dropping off a cream scone, a neighbour collecting your shopping, the excited chatter of your grandchild on FaceTime, the touch of a nurse's hand, and the warmth of the sun on your cheek. And finally, Psalm 23 reminds me of God's blessing for the future. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And the psalm ends with the calmest assurance that I will enjoy the presence of the Lord forever, both on this earth and beyond. I don't know how you're feeling or what you are experiencing at the moment. I earnestly pray that you are well in mind, body and spirit. And while we all know that this time will pass, I hope that you can sit with the words of David's psalm, Psalm 23, and find comfort in the knowledge that the Lord is the Good Shepherd. He will tend to our needs, guide and protect us, and support us. Amen.